You want to speak to that, or do you want me to?
So why don't you go first? Because I'd love to see what you're seeing, and then I'll share my perspective when I'm talking to CISOs and how we view it.
Sure. Um, Shameless statistic. Through 2021, 99% of exploited vulnerabilities will be issues known by an organization's security team for the last 1 year. Straight from the Duo website, and that was actually taken from a Gartner report. You can see that on the Duo website. So trusted endpoints allow you to integrate with your mobile device manager, right? So if you have a mobile device manager that manages your mobile devices out there, such as Meraki System Manager or some of the other ones that are out there, that's already done kind of the vetting of this device to know that this is a valid device, and so that can be part of the credentials in Duo to decide whether that device is permitted to connect to an application. So just to kind of circle back a little bit to the whole, this speaks to the zero trust, right? So to give a definition of zero trust, no user or trust no user or no device to access your applications or infrastructure until they are deemed trustworthy. So that means the default no. You need to prove who you are. You're going to come to a house and you're going to knock on the door and say, let me in, and the door's not just open. You can't just walk in. You have to prove who you are, and what do you prove everything about yourself before you're allowed in. So this is, of course, there's the user trust part of that we've been discussing, the multi-factor authentication and the logins, and the device trust is another piece of this to say, all right, now you can get in if you have this type of device that is trusted, say by a mobile device manager. So that's, if it fits into the scenario, that works great. If it fits into your situation, it may not fit into every situation, but if it fits into your situation, yeah, that's a great thing to speak to. You have anything to add to that, Wolfgang, before I move on?
Yeah, I would also add that I completely agree with the framing of zero trust as evaluating trust on every authentication to make sure that we still trust them based on user authentication, device properties, the context conditions of authentication. Now, what's interesting is earlier when we were talking about user authentication, we talked about, hey, sometimes you would still have SMS. You might still have a phone callback. You may still have a push. You may go all the way up to providing them a physical hard token. We have a portfolio of options, and we apply those options to the risk of that population or the risk of those activities. In much the same way, historically, ever since in 2011, Intel coined the term BYD, which, by the way, important to mention that D used to be singular, one device, right? We may allow some people to use a device on our network. Ever since then, we've oftentimes applied MDM, right? Either MDM to fully harden it, or we don't have much control other than that. What we're seeing evolve, what we see through Duo, is looking at this like a portfolio similar to how we're talking about user authentication. Where on the most trusted side, you got an MDM, you got a full agent, we've got visibility, we're not going to allow you to authenticate, we're not going to allow you, unless it's meets other requirements, is tall enough to ride the ride, no, you're not it. Then we may have a device health agent, which is a very lightweight agent that's simply giving visibility into policy concerns like, is the device encrypted, does it have a key lock, is it not jailbroken? The important things, but doesn't have visibility or device control. That idea of having a couple different tiers opens up the ability to manage much more devices. And then on the far side, we may have a trusted device that the only thing we know about it is they've said, trust this device via cookie, and we can see their user, browser session, so we can determine what their version is and whatnot. This creates a spectrum of different ways that we can tackle these devices. And why that spectrum is important is Intel device, singular device. Today, pre-pandemic, we're seeing an average person at around 2 to 3 devices. Post-pandemic, that the number has jumped up to over 6. We're accessing every single device, whatever's closest is how we're getting the data. And that means that to put an MDM on all of them would be very expensive, very time intensive to manage, And in many cases, you'd have a user going, "You want to put an MDM on my kid's laptop? I only use it to access one." Right? We've got scenarios where users also may be resistant. So I think it's a really good question. And as we think about the device side of things, that portfolio approach allows us to get a lot greater control over our environment.